Hi everyone, please welcome to the our next section of the podcast. And today I'm joined by with Andrew Shuman. He was CVP at Microsoft for more than around 30 years and an amazing career. I'm really delighted to be having a conversation with him. He has recently retired or semi-retired from Microsoft and now is on a journey to help other product managers and going on the coaching. So if you want coaching and advice, please reach out to him. I'll be adding his LinkedIn profile in the podcast and in the post. So please reach out to him. So welcome, Andrew. Thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it. So this is our local group at PNW. We're Seattle Product Management Group, and we are trying to get more leaders in the local area get introduced and people getting advice from them throughout their career, what their learnings have been.
It's awesome. Well, thank you very much for the heartwarming introduction. And I too am just really excited to kind of connect better across the Pacific Northwest with all the people doing really good work in the product space, and just have such fondness for this area and the people that are now really going off and doing lots of interesting things. I am advising a startup in the area that came to Seattle from London for just that reason. They wanted to be in this area and kind of absorb a lot of the talent opportunities. So welcome. Glad to be part of the group.
Thank you. So your journey, couldn't even summarize. I was looking at the LinkedIn 30 years. So can you just walk us through how your journey have been, specifically from the lens of product management? Did you always start in product management? Did something attracted you, and how your journey has shaped up over the years?
Sure. Oh, thank you for that opportunity to pontificate about myself. That's great. I grew up in the New England area, and I went to college in Boston, and I majored in computer science, and I graduated in 1993. At the time, computer science was very oddball. There were not very many people majoring in it. There were very few people in the classes. And of course, now it's the most popular major at that university and many universities. So after graduating, I got a job as a developer, and the job was offered to me by Microsoft was to pick between going to work on Microsoft Word or a project code named Microsoft Ren and Stimpy, which were comic book characters, cartoon characters that we codenamed it after. Well, that became Outlook. And so I worked for almost 4 years as a developer, really only on the calendaring systems. So until very recently, the calendar code, all of its bugs were still there that I wrote when I was 23, 24, 25. I used to tease them about maybe fixing them eventually, and they finally have. It's a revamped new Outlook now. Along the way, I was fortunate enough to be kind of pre-internet in my computer science background at the university, but when I got to Microsoft, of course, it exploded. And that's when I made a big switch in my life to really thinking about product and being more product centric in my career, which was a much bigger step than I realized. I always thought of myself as a product end user person as a developer, but the landscape of being an actual product manager or program manager, as we called it then, was enormous. And I went to work on Slate.com, which was an online news service, news magazine that Microsoft published during kind of the heyday of trying to figure out what the internet was going to be. And I became basically their chief technology guy. So I had a design team, program management team, a very small development team. And it being the early days, we did everything. I learned some really hard lessons there about myself, if I'm honest, because it was a new change of pace and it was a lot less clear structure about what we should do in this space and what we should do as technologists too. We did a bit of everything. We did search, we did advertising, we did subscriptions. And after a couple of years there, I decided to go back to more of a traditional software role where I worked as an engineering manager and then a general manager for sort of back-end services, and probably was fortunate enough through luck to get my biggest opportunity, which was when I went to work on Live Search or Bing. And it's really the engineering manager and product manager in some ways for all of the user experience, which was just an enormously cool thing to work on. I mean, it was so crazy that we were trying to compete with Google. It still is crazy, but of course now it's crazy and very profitable. And I just remember that experience of like, oh, wait a minute, this is the most enabling technology of our era. And only Microsoft will be able to compete with Google on this front by spending enormous amounts of money and time. And we wrestled with real tough product decisions. Where do we copy Google, honestly? Where do we innovate? We wanted to stand on our own, but we also recognized that search kind of was a commodity. We coined an expression that stuck with us for many years, which is we wanted to win on first impression and merit continued use. And that mantra was a very useful kind of focus for the team to think about what we were doing, why we were doing it. Win on first impression meant that we did need to be visually distinguishable. And we worked hard on that homepage experience that really became one of our calling cards. Merit continued use, we did a ton of work on what we called the Bing Challenge, which was literally like a taste test. You could use a blank website that was unbranded and try and compare the results to show that we were really good and really potent part of the equation. And it was fun because unlike many parts of Microsoft, we were underdogs the whole time and we were behind the whole time, and we just had to really be brave and keep working hard and struggling up this mountain together. And we went from 10% market share to 20% market share, losing billions of dollars a year, to profitable of many billions a year. And then more recently after that, I worked on some really fun things. I worked on some groups that were pioneering Office services and AI as a service. That led me to then running the Cortana team, which I think we'll get to talk even more about, which was a very fascinating thing. And right before I left, I remember we were incubating a little project with this team called OpenAI. And we're like, wow, I wonder how that'll go. And lo and behold, it's in front of us today. So that's a lightning quick journey of my career. And I'm really eager to just continue to connect with people and hopefully help them kind of talk through what their challenges are, what they've faced, and how they kind of move forward.
Yeah, and that's great, like giving back to the community. I think one of the things I'm gonna just take a little bit side road on. You went from being developer to product manager, then developer, then GM. Do you think that background and that starting out as an engineer helped in certain way to be a product manager, especially in a tech first or tech company?
Yeah, I mean, I was always sort of split. Even my interview loop way back in 1992 was split between PM and dev. Um, in hindsight, knowing myself better, I really got a lot out of the early experience of being a developer and having that structure. I think early in my personality was such that I think it would have been, people never believe me when I say this, but I'll say this. I actually was a little bit shy about kind of getting out and talking to people.
I don't agree with you. I
Which
don't believe
no one believes me, but I found my first review and it said something like, ask more questions, Andrew. I was like, wow, people would never believe this. But it's true. And so I valued that structure and kind of getting things done and being able to just work really hard in my office in a way that I think in hindsight really served me well, because I then really did appreciate what developer culture was like and that team culture, because product managers and program managers, of course, have to be completely customer obsessed, and we can get into that detail, but they also have to know how to get developers and teams excited about a project. You really have to lead through influence. You don't lead through command and control or direct account. You have to lead through influence. And so that ended up teaching me a lot in hindsight when I certainly, like in the Bing years and the Cortana years, about the storytelling aspect of product development, and the storytelling being so important for our end users, but really for the team as well. And to take one quick example, we worked really hard in Bing on agility. And we wanted to make agility, even though it's a very dev-centric thing, like how fast and efficient can a developer work? We really wanted to embody that for people. And so we coined this phrase called save and refresh. It should be as easy to make a change to the Bing.com website as saving your code file and refreshing a browser. And it became this funny mantra of, like, everyone kept talking about it. Like, oh, that's not as good as save and refresh could be. That's not, and we all laugh about it later because it became this kind of encapsulation of a real end user goal that the team could rally around. And so I think there's some examples like that where I understood the culture, I understood the technology. It certainly helps now that my daughter wants to learn AP computer science, because I can actually figure out Java, even though I didn't do a lot of programming in Java. She's going to eclipse me soon, I'm sure.
Awesome. So listen, like such a great journey you have, like, but every journey has this like couple of like few inflection points. It's just changed the trajectory of your career. in your career, like, can you identify those one or two and what the learning and what happened, like what that inflection point was?
Yeah, thank you for that. This is a challenging thing for people to talk about, but so I try to talk about it openly. My late 20s, I really realized that I was suffering from depression in pretty serious way, and I hadn't really ever found the words for it. And I was fortunate enough at that time to get therapy and to eventually start taking some kind of Prozac-like drugs, SSRI drugs, things like that. Um, and that was an enormous change in my work life too, because it really made me realize how much I had an internal chatter in my brain that was honestly unhealthy and maybe unnatural. I don't know. I think everyone struggles with this. I think life is struggle at times. But that was a huge change for me in kind of being able to approach work a little more unemotionally in a good way. I am an emotional person. I like getting excited about things. I like getting angry when things don't work. But to kind of start to remove this layer of self-criticism, of depression, of that aspect of it, and to really embody what Satya then later really talked a lot about too, which is a growth mindset. They can feel cliched or cliched-like things, but they really do help you to sort of sit in a moment and say, oh, why is this happening? What can we do about it? And I had a coworker around the same time, whenever anything went wrong, he said, oh, great, something went wrong. Let's talk about it. And that just sticks with you. And it is the right mentality as a product leader to truly celebrate almost like the minutia. Like someone comes into your office and says, God, I'm really angry about you about this thing. Oh, that's great. I'm so glad you're bringing this up and so glad you're angry at me, right? Like that kind of mental shift changed my life for the better and changed the way I approach product and work in a very meaningful way. And I think it also, just one last point, I think it enabled me to actually have a different kind of customer empathy and understanding for what people are using and to kind of be in a better place when I think about end users and the struggles they have. They aren't trying to make beautiful code that looks great or whatever. They're trying to get a job done, especially at Microsoft with all the productivity work. They're, billions of dollars is riding on things that our software is used for. So,
Yeah, no, thank you for talking through that. I think this is really like realization and taking action on something and changing the mindset is so important. And we are always in the learning phase and growing phase. So I'm gonna switch track a little bit. So you had the front seat on AI, like pretty much before, like right now the whole industry. Like if you're not talking about AI that you're doing in the company, I don't think you matter kind of feeling.
right,
But you
right,
were
right.
way before involved and you saw that evolution. So the question to you is like today the product management, as they're saying, the whole life cycle is changing. What do you see how this AI manifests itself in the product life cycle, and what should product management be on the watch out for, careful
Yeah,
or
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, first off, it is amazing change to see, and it is easily as big as that moment in '94 when everyone downloaded the browsers for the first time and started making them work, it's remarkable that I have witnessed these two tremendous changes, and I think both of those are bigger even than mobile phones, which is of course a huge one that went on as well. So. I think the thing that I get caught up in is a little bit of trying to be a little bit more, first off, a little bit conservative in face of the great hype machines. So acknowledging all that I just said, that it's huge and enormous and lots of things are changing. It's ever more important to kind of be really in touch with the product management skills of what are the customers' experiences like and what are they trying to accomplish and how do we help them accomplish that? And first and foremost, I just think every product manager out there, if they want to be continue to do good work, they have to play with all of these AI models and teach themselves a new way of doing things. A lot of us are good at program management or product management, are really good at our own productivity, right? We've got systems for doing our email or systems for writing or list making or things. Well, you have to like remind yourself, no, I should probably start with Copilot or ChatGPT and do that first and give it a real try before I go back to my kind of really good habits that I've developed, over 5, 10, 20 years that have gotten me to where I am. So that's one thing that I've noticed about myself is really rewiring my own brain to say, try these tools, use these tools, probe these tools, find out where the edges are that work and don't work, and be truly delighted at times too. There's a Copilot feature that will build tables for you based on internet data. And we've been shopping for an EV. So I just asked Copilot to create a table of all the EV heights and widths and lengths. Perfect. It did it. It was awesome. I could open an Excel. I could swap it. I could add my own column and then add more detail. Is that mind blowing? It's kind of mind blowing. Is it saving me a lot of time? It saves me a significant amount of time, right? Like it's a funny kind of thing where it's like 20 or 30 minutes of searching the web, cutting and pasting that just went away. So that's a great example, right? Like I'm good enough at searching the web that I wouldn't have done that or I wouldn't have thought to do that. So doing that is really important and trying it out. And then I think that does lead us to a great topic that we could brainstorm. And I'd love your thoughts too, is, what will products themselves become different in interesting ways because of this? Product development, program management, product management is going to be ever more important. You might have less developers to work with. You might have more prompts that you have to try yourself. You might need to train yourself to try prompts first before you write us back, because you might want to think a lot about what the generic kind of, the floor has risen, I guess is a way to say it, right? So the baseline is no longer going to be open up and write a bunch of code. The baseline is going to be try out a few of these LLMs tuned for your use case, and then see where you want to add value on top of that in interesting ways. So that's a big aspect of it. The other thing that I think is really a great topic for discussion is natural language and natural language interface. And I think recognizing how hard natural language is just between two humans and having an appreciation for, we've got billions of years of great genetic work that has made us able to talk to one another and understand language that we take for granted. Corrections. Did you mean this? Did you mean that? Oh, wait, what was that last thing you said? Oh, what about this? What about that? You can leave a one-on-one with two people having completely opposite ideas of what just happened, which is fascinating now that we're all going to be using natural language more and more as our interface to computers. So I think that will be this enormous opportunity for product and program managers to think creatively about what does that mean as an interface? Where is it insufficient because it's not as binary as a checkbox or a switch or a button? And how do you start to think about that issue of like, I just took for granted that table I had created was right. I'm sure some of those data points were probably wrong because they didn't do what I know how to do, which is, I'm going to double check that it's actually the dimensions, that it's the right model year. Well, that's sort of such a fascinating UI problem that Copilot or ChatGPT hasn't solved. They haven't kind of, they do footnotes and things, but they haven't really figured out a way to highlight perhaps their confidence score or their, when you and I might be talking about a topic, we'd say, well, I looked it up on the web, but I'm not sure about this, this, and this. They don't do that, right? So I've probably rambled on a little too long, but it's a very exciting thing. And those are
amazing. So I was just like, from my point is like when the mobile came, suddenly like what experience, the expectation of consumer completely changed, right? Like, oh, you should be working on mobile and click. And I think this is the expectation of the consumer with this will also change, and you have to be in mind. So what I think is like product management will be more important because now you need to evolve as the consumers are changing their expectation and really meet them there. And how do you do that? What's working? What's not working?
You have said it very well, better than I said it. You're right. Like all of us have to evolve to being really aware of this technology, using it ourselves, not taking things for granted, which human nature can do.
If I've been working for so long, it will work now. No, what got us here is not going to get us there.
Right, right, right.
Thank you so much. It was great. I think one last thing, if you have any, like we have a full community of product management, some up early on in the career, some are middle stage, and the whole industry is in a reckoning. If you have one advice for the product management in our local community, what would you say?
Oh, well, we've touched on it, and you've brought it up too when we've talked before. Like, really put yourself in the customer's shoes at all costs, and frame every discussion you have with anyone about the product, use case, and the user. It's just such an easy thing to forget about somehow. And so kind of continually bringing yourself back to your mom, using that software in whatever situation she is, I just think is bears
AI
repeating
will be
well.
hard to explain to her, but yeah. But thanks so much,
Exactly.
Andrew. Really
All
appreciate
right.
your time, and I will add your link in the chat so people can reach out to you
Great.
and
Great.
really
Yes.
leverage.
Thank you, Ekta. And thank you for doing this and running this podcast. It's really great.
Absolutely.